in the tabbed UI component. So what you can see here is we have a grid that opens up another grid, and when it's running not inside a tabbed UI, then this target grid is opened up in a window. But you can see if we go to the definition of the component that we've specified that this target grid is opened up in a tabbed UI pane. And the new option that we've added is that you can refresh the parent tab pane when this tab pane is closed. So when I press the button, this target grid will be opened up in a new tab UI pane, and then when I close that tab UI pane down, the grid in the parent tab pane will be updated because I've checked this button over here. So let's go ahead now and save this, and now let's switch over to the tabbed UI object. So let's go here now and run the tabbed UI pane. We click the button to open up the grid. Then when we click this button over here, we open up another grid inside a tabbed UI pane as opposed to in a pop-up window. And I'm going to go there and change that to Jenkins and then save it. Now if I go back to the parent grid, you can see it still says Ravens because we haven't yet closed this grid. But now I'm going to close this grid, this pane down, and as soon as I close this pane down, the event fires. So I'll go there and I'll close it down, and now you can see it's updated to Jenkins. So basically what we've actually done is if you go back to the tabbed UI pane, you'll see that for every pane here there's new JavaScript events now. So in addition to JavaScript, there are now tab pane JavaScript events, which and the events that you can define for the tab pane are on before change, on change, on right click, on initial, on before remove, so that's before the user closes the pane down, and on remove. And so these events can be defined when you place a button on the tabbed UI object, but they can also be defined over here. So when I define a button that in a grid component in Action Javascript, you can see that if I set my target for the grid to be a tabbed UI pane, then I get these events over here. And of course if I change that then to be a window, then I get window JavaScript events. But in this case we've got a tabbed UI pane, and when I click this checkbox over here, in effect all that's really going on behind the scenes is that Alpha 5 is automatically putting in the appropriate JavaScript into the on before remove event to actually go ahead and do a refresh of the parent grid. And in actual fact the JavaScript that is going on, that is being executed, which I could have written myself and put into the on before event handler over there myself, is just simply this code over here. When the events inside the pane object fire, an object called paneObj is passed in, and so by using this expression over here I can get a pointer to the grid object that is running inside that tab pane. Then once I have a pointer to the grid object, I can get a pointer to its parent, which is the grid that opened up this grid in the first place, by using this method over here, and then I just simply call the refresh method on the parent grid. So that's just for your interest what's going on behind the scenes when you check this checkbox over here. Thank you very much.